The air hung heavy with the scent of pine sap and wet earth as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the dense forest surrounding Pine Hollow, a forgotten speck of a town in rural Georgia. On that crisp autumn evening, Emily Carter and Sarah Wells, two young women in their early 20s, set out for a hike in the sprawling woods that locals called the Devil's Throat. They were best friends, inseparable since childhood, known for their adventurous spirits and love of the outdoors. They packed light, backpacks with water, granola bars, a flashlight, and a map. Emily's boyfriend, Nathan Brooks, waved them off from his front porch, his silhouette framed against the fading light. "Be careful," he called, his voice swallowed by the rustling leaves. They never returned. The town searched for weeks. Volunteers combed the woods, dogs sniffed every trail, and helicopters buzzed overhead. No backpacks, no footprints, no trace. It was as if the forest had opened its maw and swallowed them whole. Rumors swirled. A bear attack, a serial killer, a secret cult in the woods. Nathan, a quiet mechanic with a reputation for keeping to himself, became the focal point of suspicion. His house, a ramshackle cabin on the edge of town, was searched, but nothing was found. No blood, no belongings, nothing to suggest foul play. The case went cold, a wound that never healed for Pine Hollow. April 12, 2025, Pine Hollow, Georgia. Detective Jack Ramsey stood in the gravel driveway of Nathan Brooks' abandoned cabin, the morning mist curling around his boots like ghostly fingers. At 42, Jack was a seasoned investigator, his face etched with lines from years of chasing truths that often slipped through his fingers. He'd moved to Pine Hollow 6 months ago, seeking a quieter life after a botched case in Atlanta cost him his partner and his confidence. But Pine Hollow wasn't the escape he'd hoped for. The town's history clung to it like damp rot, and Jack, who'd lost his sister to a similar disappearance years ago, felt its weight. The call came at dawn. A construction crew, clearing land for a new highway, had unearthed something chilling. A rusted, padlocked trunk buried deep in the woods, a mile from Nathan's old property. Inside, they found women's clothing, jeans, a flannel shirt, a single hiking boot, along with a leather-bound notebook, its pages yellowed but intact. The crew swore the air grew colder when they opened it, though Jack dismissed that as small-town superstition. He crouched beside the trunk now, gloved hands flipping through the notebook. The handwriting was erratic, feminine, and desperate. "They're watching us. They know we're here. The man in the mask said we'd never leave." Jack's stomach churned. The notebook belonged to Emily Carter. Her name was scrawled on the inside cover, along with the date, October 17th, 1994, the day before she and Sarah vanished. He read the last entry again, his pulse quickening. "Nathan doesn't know. He thinks we're just hiking. But I saw someone in the trees last night, watching. I heard whispers in the dark." Jack's eyes flicked to the cabin, its windows boarded, its paint peeling like dead skin. Nathan had moved away years ago, after the town turned on him. No one knew where he'd gone, or so they claimed. Jack's partner, Officer Lila Hayes, approached, her boots crunching on the gravel. "Locals are talking," she said, her voice low. "They say Nathan was into some weird stuff, meetings in the woods, late-night visitors. Never proved anything, but..." She trailed off, glancing at the notebook in Jack's hands. "You think it's her?" "Emily, it's her," Jack said, his voice tight. He'd seen cases like this before, disappearances that left ghosts in their wake. His sister, Clara, vanished when he was 19, taken from a park in broad daylight. No trace, no closure. That loss drove him to this job, to Pine Hollow, to this moment. He wouldn't let Emily and Sarah become another statistic. The sheriff's department had cordoned off Nathan's property, though the man himself was long gone. Jack pushed open the cabin's creaking door, the air inside thick with dust and mildew. The place was frozen in time, a sagging couch, a rusted stove, a stack of yellowed newspapers from 1994. Lila swept her flashlight across the room, pausing on a faded photo pinned to the wall. Emily and Sarah, laughing, arms around each other, Nathan in the background, his smile strained. Jack's eyes caught something else, scratch marks on the floorboards near the fireplace, faint but deliberate, as if something heavy had been dragged. He knelt, running his fingers along the grooves. "Lila, help me with this." Together, they pried up the boards, revealing a crawlspace barely 2 feet high. The beam of Lila's flashlight caught a glint of metal, a rusted hinge, half buried in the dirt. Jack's heart pounded as he brushed away the soil, exposing a small, locked trapdoor. "What the hell is this?" Lila whispered, her voice trembling. Jack didn't answer. He grabbed a crowbar from his bag and wedged it into the lock. The trapdoor groaned as it gave way, revealing a narrow shaft descending into darkness. A faint, acrid smell wafted up, like damp earth mixed with something sour, something wrong. Jack's flashlight illuminated rough stone walls, slick with moisture, and a ladder bolted to the side. At the bottom, barely visible, lay a pile of papers, more notebooks, maybe, or something else entirely. He glanced at Lila, her face pale but resolute. "You coming?" he asked. She nodded, but her eyes betrayed her fear. Jack took a deep breath, the weight of his sister's memory pressing against his chest. Whatever was down there, it was tied to Emily, Sarah, and maybe Nathan. He stepped onto the ladder, the cold metal biting into his palms. As he descended, a sound stopped him cold, a faint scratching, like nails on stone, coming from the darkness below. He froze, his flashlight beam trembling. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. Lila's voice was barely audible. "Jack, what's down there?" He didn't answer. The scratching grew louder, rhythmic, deliberate. His grip tightened on the ladder as he peered into the void, the notebook's words echoing in his mind. "They're watching us." What's hidden beneath Nathan's cabin? Read Part 2 to uncover the chilling truth. Comment where you're tuning in from, and like if you want to know what Jack finds next. April 12th, 2025, Pine Hollow, Georgia. The air in the shaft beneath Nathan Brooks' cabin was thick, pressing against Detective Jack Ramsey's lungs like a damp cloth. Each rung of the rusted ladder creaked under his weight, the metal cold and slick beneath his palms. The scratching sound had stopped, leaving only the faint drip of water echoing in the darkness. His flashlight beam danced across the stone walls, revealing crude etchings, symbols, maybe, or random scratches from desperate hands. Jack's pulse thrummed in his ears, the memory of his sister Clara's disappearance clawing at his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that whatever waited below was more than evidence. It was a truth he might not be ready to face. Officer Lila Hayes followed close behind, her breathing shallow but steady. "This feels wrong, Jack," she whispered, her voice barely carrying over the hum of something mechanical far below. "What kind of person builds a trapdoor under their house?" "The kind who has something to hide," Jack muttered, his eyes fixed on the shadows. The ladder ended at a narrow tunnel, its walls slick with condensation and streaked with rust-colored stains. A pile of papers lay scattered at the base, half buried in the dirt. Jack crouched, picking up a crumpled sheet. It was a map, hand-drawn, showing a network of tunnels winding through the forest, marked with cryptic labels: Red Room, Observation Post, Containment. A single red X marked a spot deep in the woods, miles from Pine Hollow. "Containment," Lila read over his shoulder, her voice tight. What the hell were they containing? Jack didn't answer. He stuffed the map into his jacket and swept his flashlight across the tunnel. It stretched in 2 directions, one toward the town, the other deeper into the forest. The hum grew louder from the ladder, a low, unnatural pulse that seemed to vibrate in his bones. He glanced at Lila, her face pale in the dim light. "We go deeper," he said. She hesitated, then nodded, gripping her flashlight like a lifeline. They moved forward, the tunnel narrowing until they had to duck to avoid the low ceiling. The air grew colder, the smell of damp earth now laced with something metallic, like old blood. Jack's mind raced, piecing together fragments. Emily's notebook, the buried trunk, Nathan's sudden departure. The town had always whispered about Nathan, his late-night drives, his guarded demeanor, the strangers who visited his cabin. But no one had proof. Not until now. They reached a fork in the tunnel, where a rusted metal door blocked their path. It was heavy, industrial, with a small, fogged window at eye level. Jack wiped the grime away, peering through. Beyond was a small chamber, its walls lined with shelves of files and equipment, monitors, wires, and what looked like medical tools, glinting faintly in the dark. "This isn't just a hideout," Jack said, his voice low. "This is a setup." Lila's hand rested on her holster. "For what?" Jack didn't have an answer. He tried the door, but it was locked, a heavy bolt sealed with a padlock. He pulled out his crowbar, but before he could pry it open, a sharp crack echoed behind him, a footstep on loose gravel. Jack spun, his flashlight catching a flicker of movement at the tunnel's far end. A shadow, tall and lean, vanished around a bend. "Hey!" Jack shouted, his voice bouncing off the walls. No response, only the fading echo of footsteps. Lila grabbed his arm. "Jack, we need to get out of here. Now." "Not yet," he said, his jaw tight. He turned back to the door, wedging the crowbar into the lock. It gave with a groan, and the door swung open, revealing the chamber in full. The air inside was sterile, cold, like a hospital ward left to rot. A metal table sat in the center, stained with dark streaks. Shelves held dusty files labeled with numbers, not names, and a single cassette recorder sat on a desk, its tape still intact. Jack pressed play, and a woman's voice crackled through, frantic and raw. "October 17th, 1994. They took us to the Red Room. They said it's for our own good, but I saw the masks. They're not human. They're watching, always watching. Nathan doesn't know. He thinks we're safe, but we're not. Sarah's screaming stopped an hour ago. I don't know if she's—" The tape cut off, replaced by static. Jack's blood ran cold. "Emily." He looked at Lila, whose face was ashen. "The Red Room," she whispered, pointing to a file labeled Project Red. Jack opened it, scanning pages of typed reports, subject compliance, neural reprogramming, observation logs. Words like control and isolation jumped out, along with a name, Dr. Elias Kane, a behavioral scientist who'd worked for a shadowy government contractor in the 90s. The reports hinted at experiments, something about reprogramming human behavior, funded by a now-defunct agency. Before Jack could read more, his phone buzzed, a rare signal in the tunnel. The screen lit up with an unknown number. He answered, and a low, distorted voice rasped through. "Stop digging, Ramsey. You're not safe." The call cut off. Jack's hand tightened around the phone, his eyes darting to the tunnel's entrance. The hum was louder now, almost deafening, coming from deeper within. Lila's voice trembled. "Who was that?" Jack didn't answer. He grabbed the Project Red file and the cassette, shoving them into his bag. "We need to find that Red Room," he said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. He stepped back into the tunnel, following the hum, Lila close behind. The air grew colder, the walls tighter, until they reached another door, this one wooden, warped, with a faint red glow seeping through the cracks. Jack's hand hovered over the handle. The notebook's words echoed in his mind. The man in the mask said we'd never leave. He glanced at Lila, her eyes wide with dread. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded, but her hand shook on her gun. Jack pushed the door open, and a wave of cold air hit them, carrying the stench of decay. The room beyond was small, its walls painted a dull red, chipped and peeling. In the center stood a single chair, bolted to the floor, with leather straps dangling from its arms. Scratched into the wall above it was a single word, "Obey." Jack's flashlight flickered, casting jagged shadows. Then, from the corner of the room, a low, guttural sound, a moan, or maybe a sob. He swung the beam, catching a glimpse of something pale and trembling in the dark. Before he could move, the door slammed shut behind him, the lock clicking into place. What's trapped in the Red Room? Read Part 3 to uncover the next layer of this chilling mystery. Share your theory in the comments and subscribe to stay in the loop. April 12, 2025, Pine Hollow, Georgia. The Red Room's door slammed shut with a finality that echoed like a gunshot in Detective Jack Ramsey's ears. The air was thick with the stench of decay, sharp and sour, clinging to the back of his throat. His flashlight flickered, casting erratic shadows across the peeling red walls, where the word "obey" loomed above the bolted chair like a command from a forgotten god. The moan came again, low and guttural, from the corner of the room. Jack's heart pounded. his grip tightening on his gun as he swung the beam toward the sound. Officer Lila Hayes stood frozen beside him, her breath shallow, her hand hovering over her holster. "Stay sharp," Jack whispered, his voice barely cutting through the oppressive silence. The moan stopped, replaced by a faint rustle, like fabric dragging across the floor. He stepped forward, the beam catching a glimpse of something pale, a hand, thin and trembling, reaching from the shadows. Jack's stomach lurched. "Who's there?" he called, his voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding his veins. No answer. The rustle grew louder, and a figure emerged, crawling into the light. It was a woman, her clothes tattered, her face gaunt and streaked with dirt, her eyes, wide and glassy, locked onto Jack's. "Help!" she rasped, her voice barely a whisper, cracked from disuse. "They're still here." Lila gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Is that Sarah?" Jack said, his mind racing. Sarah Wells, missing for 31 years, presumed dead. But here she was, alive, if barely. Her hair, once chestnut brown in the photos, was now streaked with gray, matted with grime. Her fingers clutched a scrap of paper, crumpled and stained. Jack knelt beside her, his heart hammering. "Sarah, it's okay. We're here to help. What happened?" Her eyes darted to the locked door, then back to Jack. They never left," she whispered. "The masks they watch." She thrust the paper into his hand, her fingers cold as ice. Jack unfolded it, revealing a hasty sketch. A circle of figures in hooded cloaks, their faces obscured by featureless masks, surrounding a chair like the one in the room. Below it, in shaky handwriting, "They remake you. They take your mind." Jack's blood ran cold. The Project Red file he'd found earlier flashed through his mind. Terms like neural reprogramming and subject compliance. This wasn't just a kidnapping. It was something deliberate, something planned. He helped Sarah to her feet, her body frail and trembling. "Who did this?" he asked, his voice low. "Was it Nathan?" Sarah's eyes widened, a flicker of fear crossing her face. "Nathan didn't know," she said. "He thought we were hiking." But they knew. They always knew. Before she could say more, a sharp clang echoed from beyond the door, followed by the sound of boots on stone. Someone was coming. Lila spun toward the door, her gun drawn. "Jack, we're trapped." "Not yet," he said, scanning the room. The walls were solid, no windows, no vents. But the chair caught his eye again. Its base was bolted, but the floor beneath it looked uneven, as if it had been disturbed. Jack dropped to his knees, running his fingers along the edges. There a seam, barely visible, outlining a trapdoor. He grabbed his crowbar, prying at the edges, his muscles straining as the footsteps grew louder. "Jack, hurry!" Lila hissed, her gun trained on the door. Sarah clutched Jack's arm, her nails digging into his skin. The trapdoor gave way with a groan, revealing a narrow shaft, descending into darkness. A faint breeze wafted up, carrying the same metallic tang as before. Jack hesitated, the memory of his sister Clara's disappearance clawing at him. Whatever was down there, it was the heart of this nightmare. "Go," he told Lila, helping Sarah toward the shaft. "I'll cover you." Lila nodded, her face pale but resolute, and began lowering Sarah into the darkness. Jack stood, his gun aimed at the door as the footsteps stopped. A shadow loomed in the small window, tall and motionless. Then a voice, low, distorted, like the one from the phone call. "You shouldn't have come, Ramsey." The door rattled, the lock groaning under pressure. Jack's heart raced. He recognized that voice, though he couldn't place it. Not Nathan, someone else, someone with power. He backed toward the shaft, his flashlight catching a glint of metal on the wall, a small, engraved plaque, barely legible. Ike 1994. Elias Kane, the scientist from the Project Red file. Jack's mind spun. Kane had been disgraced, vanished after his funding was cut. Was he still here, pulling strings? The door buckled, and Jack didn't wait. He slid into the shaft, pulling the trapdoor shut behind him. The darkness swallowed him, the air growing colder as he descended a rickety ladder. Below, Lila's flashlight bobbed, illuminating a cavernous chamber. The hum was deafening now, a mechanical pulse that vibrated through the stone. Jack reached the bottom, finding Lila and Sarah huddled against a wall. The chamber was vast, its walls lined with rusted machinery, monitors, cables, and what looked like medical pods. Their glass lids cracked and fogged. Sarah pointed a trembling finger toward a corner. "There," she whispered. "The red room, it wasn't just one." Jack followed her gaze, his flashlight revealing a row of doors, each painted red, each with a small window. Behind one, a shadow moved, brief, fleeting, but unmistakable. Someone else was here. Jack approached the nearest door, his gun raised. The window was smeared with grime, but through it, he saw a figure slumped in a chair, straps binding their wrists. Not Emily, someone else, their face obscured by a hood. Jack's stomach churned. How many others had been taken? He tried the door, but it was locked, the mechanism electronic, powered by the humming machinery. Lila grabbed his arm. "Jack, we can't stay here. Whoever's up there is coming." "We can't leave them," Jack said, his voice fierce. He scanned the room, spotting a control panel covered in dust. He wiped it clean, revealing switches and a keypad. A faded label read, "Containment Release." Jack hesitated, then punched in a code from the Project Red file, 1994, the year it all began. A beep echoed, and the red doors clicked, their locks disengaging. Before he could move, a scream tore through the chamber, not Sarah's, not Lila's. It came from one of the rooms, high and desperate. Jack ran toward it, kicking the door open. Inside, a figure writhed against the straps, the hood falling away to reveal a face he didn't recognize. A man middle-aged, his eyes wild with terror. "They're coming," he screamed. They never stopped. Jack froze as a new sound filled the chamber, a low, rhythmic thud, like boots marching in unison. He turned, his flashlight catching a glimpse of figures in the tunnel above, their faces hidden behind featureless masks. Then his phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with a single message from an unknown number. "You've opened the cage. They're free now. Who's been released from the red rooms?" Read Part 4 to uncover the chilling finale. Like and comment what you do in Jack's shoes. April 12, 2025, Pine Hollow, Georgia. The air in the underground chamber pulsed with the rhythmic thud of boots, each step echoing like a heartbeat in Detective Jack Ramsey's chest. His flashlight trembled, casting jagged beams across the row of red doors, now unlocked, their secrets spilling into the open. The scream from the man in the hooded room still rang in his ears, a raw, desperate cry that spoke of years of torment. Sarah Wells clung to Officer Lila Hayes, her frail body shaking, her eyes darting toward the tunnel above where masked figures descended. Jack's phone buzzed again, the message searing into his mind. "You've opened the cage. They're free now." "Who's free?" Lila whispered, her gun trained on the tunnel's entrance. Her voice was steady, but her hands betrayed her fear, trembling as she gripped her weapon. Jack didn't answer. He pulled the man from the chair, his wrists raw from the straps, his face gaunt and hollow. "Who are you?" Jack demanded, helping him to his feet. The man's eyes, wild and unfocused, flickered with recognition, then fear. Daniel Holt," he rasped. "They took me years ago. After the women. They never stopped." His gaze shifted to Sarah, a flicker of sorrow crossing his face. You were here too." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her dirt-streaked cheeks. "They broke us," she whispered. "They wanted our minds." Jack's stomach churned. The Project Red file flashed through his mind. Neural reprogramming, subject compliance, control. This wasn't just a kidnapping ring. It was a calculated experiment, hidden beneath Pine Hollow's forgotten woods. And Elias Kane, the scientist whose name was etched into the plaque, was at its heart. But where was Emily Carter? And where was Nathan Brooks? The thudding grew louder, closer. Jack grabbed Sarah's arm, guiding her toward the control panel. "We need to move," he said, his voice low but urgent. "Daniel, can you walk?" Daniel nodded, though his legs wobbled as he leaned on Lila. Jack scanned the chamber, his flashlight catching glints of rusted machinery, pods, monitors, and a tangle of wires leading to a heavy steel door at the far end. It was unmarked, but a faint red glow seeped from its edges. pulsing in time with the hum that filled the air. Jack's gut told him the answers lay beyond it. He led the group toward the door, his gun raised, every nerve on edge. The tunnel above echoed with voices now low, distorted, barking orders. "Secure the chamber," one shouted. Jack recognized the cadence, the same voice from the phone call. Not Nathan, but someone with authority, someone who knew Jack's name. At the steel door, Jack found a keypad, its numbers worn but functional. He punched in 1994 again, praying it would work. A beep sounded, and the door groaned open, revealing a narrow corridor lined with flickering fluorescent lights. The air was colder here, thick with the smell of antiseptic and decay. At the corridor's end, a single room glowed red, its door ajar. "Stay close," Jack said, stepping forward. Sarah's hand tightened on his arm, her breath hitching. Daniel muttered under his breath, words Jack couldn't make out, prayers, maybe, or fragments of a broken mind. Lila brought up the rear, her gun sweeping the shadows. The red room was larger than the others, its walls lined with monitors, some cracked, others displaying static. In the center stood a glass chamber, its surface smeared with grime and what looked like dried blood. Inside, a figure lay slumped on the floor, Emily Carter, her hair matted, her body curled into a ball. Jack's heart leapt. "Emily!" he shouted, rushing to the chamber. He pounded on the glass, but she didn't move. "She's alive," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "They kept her for the final phase." "What phase?" Jack demanded, prying at the chamber's lock. It was biometric, requiring a fingerprint. He cursed under his breath, scanning the room for a tool. His eyes landed on a desk piled with files, photos, and a single cassette tape labeled Final Report. He grabbed it, shoving it into his bag, then turned back to the chamber. Before he could act, the door behind him slammed shut. Jack spun, his gun raised, as a figure stepped into the room. Tall, lean, dressed in a tailored suit. The man's face was obscured by a featureless white mask, its surface gleaming under the fluorescent lights. In his hand was a pistol, aimed at Jack's chest. "You've gone too far, Ramsey," the man said, his voice distorted but familiar, the same from the phone. "You should have listened." "Who are you?" Jack demanded, stepping in front of Sarah and Daniel. Lila raised her gun, but the man's weapon didn't waver. "Someone who keeps order," he said. "This project was bigger than you, bigger than Pine Hollow. You've unleashed something you can't control." Jack's mind raced. The masked figures in the tunnel, the experiments, the reprogramming. It all pointed to a network, one that reached beyond this town. "Elias Kane," Jack said, testing the name. The man stiffened, just for a moment, confirming Jack's suspicion. "You're him, aren't you? The scientist who ran Project Red." The man tilted his head, the mask catching the light. "Kane is a name from a dead era. I'm what's left." He stepped closer, his gun steady. "You freed the subjects, but you don't understand what they've become." Jack glanced at Emily, still motionless in the chamber. "Let her go," he said. "This ends now." Kane laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "It never ends." He pressed a button on a remote in his other hand, and the monitors flickered to life, showing grainy footage of people, dozens, maybe hundreds, strapped to chairs, their eyes vacant, their mouths moving in unison. "Compliance," Kane said. "Control. The world needs order, Ramsey. We were building it." Jack's blood ran cold. This wasn't just about Emily and Sarah. It was a machine, a system, reaching into places he couldn't yet see. He lunged forward, tackling Kane before he could react. The gun fired, the shot grazing Jack's shoulder, pain searing through him. They hit the ground, grappling, the mask cracking under Jack's fist. Beneath it was an older man, his face lined but unremarkable, his eyes burning with conviction. Lila fired a warning shot, the sound deafening in the confined space. "Drop it," she shouted. Kane froze, his gun clattering to the floor. Jack pinned him, his knee on Kane's chest, and ripped the remote from his hand. He slammed it against the biometric lock, praying it would work. The chamber hissed, its door sliding open. Jack rushed to Emily, lifting her gently. Her pulse was weak, but she was alive. "Stay with me," he whispered, carrying her out. Sarah sobbed, clutching Daniel, who stared blankly at the monitors. Kane laughed from the floor, blood trickling from his lip. You think this is over? They're out there, Ramsey. The ones we made. They're waiting. Jack ignored him, helping Emily and the others toward the corridor. Lila cuffed Kane, dragging him along. They moved quickly, the thudding boots from the tunnel growing louder. Jack's shoulder burned, but he pushed forward, the weight of his sister's memory driving him. They reached the ladder, climbing back to the surface, the cold night-era shock after the claustrophobic tunnels. At the sheriff's station, Kane was booked, his mask confiscated as evidence. Emily and Sarah were taken to the hospital, Daniel to a psych ward. Jack sat in his office, the final report tape in his hands. He played it, Kane's voice filling the room. Project Red has succeeded. The subjects are compliant, ready for deployment. The network will continue, with or without me. Jack's phone buzzed, another unknown number. He answered, expecting Kane's taunts. Instead, a woman's voice, Emily's, whispered, "They're not gone, Jack. I saw them in the woods. They're still watching." The line went dead. Jack stared out the window, the pines swaying in the moonlight. He'd exposed Kane, saved Emily and Sarah, but at what cost? His badge felt heavy, his career likely over after defying orders to pursue this case. He placed a photo of Clara on his desk, a silent promise to keep fighting. But as he stepped outside, a shadow flickered among the trees, too quick to follow, leaving only the rustle of leaves and a chill that lingered. Is this story truly over? Share your theory in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe for more mysteries. April 13th, 2025, Pine Hollow, Georgia. The pines whispered in the pre-dawn gloom, their needles brushing against each other like secrets passed in the dark. Detective Jack Ramsey stood outside the sheriff's station, his breath fogging in the chilly air, the weight of Emily Carter's whispered phone call still clawing at his mind. They're not gone, Jack. I saw them in the woods. They're still watching. He hadn't slept, hadn't eaten. His shoulder throbbed from the graze of Elias Kane's bullet, but the pain was a distant hum compared to the dread pooling in his gut. The conspiracy, Project Red, wasn't over. Kane was in custody. Emily and Sarah were safe, but the network he described, the subjects he'd created, were still out there. Jack's office was a mess of files, photos, and the final report tape, its words looping in his head. The subjects are compliant, ready for deployment. Deployment for what? Control, Kane had said. Order. But whose order? And how far did this reach? Jack's eyes fell on the photo of his sister Clara, her smile frozen in time, a reminder of why he couldn't walk away. He'd saved Emily and Sarah, but the shadow in the woods, the figures Kane warned about, they were loose, and Jack felt their eyes on him. Officer Lila Hayes burst through the door, her face pale, a manila envelope clutched in her hand. "Jack, you need to see this," she said, her voice tight. "It was slipped under the station door an hour ago. No name, no prints." Jack took the envelope, his fingers brushing against its damp surface, as if it had been left in the rain. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed in stark black ink. "You open the cage, Ramsey. They're coming for you. Look to the pines." Below it, a grainy Polaroid showed a clearing deep in the forest, a circle of stones surrounding a single, charred chair, identical to the one in the red room. Scratched into the dirt was a symbol Jack recognized from the tunnel walls, a spiral with a slash through it, like an eye crossed out. "Lila, where's this clearing?" Jack asked, his voice low. She hesitated, her eyes darting to the photo. "Locals call it the Hollow. It's deep in the Devil's Throat, maybe 5 miles from Nathan's cabin. No one goes there, they say it's cursed." Jack's jaw tightened. Cursed or not, the Hollow was calling him. He grabbed his jacket, the Project Red file, and the cassette tape, shoving them into a bag. "Get Sarah and Emily's statements," he said. "Find out what they remember about the woods. And keep an eye on Kane. He knows more than he's saying." Lila nodded, but her voice stopped him at the door. "Jack, you're not going alone, are you? After last night." "I have to," he said, meeting her gaze. "This isn't over until I know what's out there." The drive to the Devil's Throat was silent, the forest closing in around Jack's truck, its pines looming like sentinels. The air grew heavier as he parked near a trailhead, the path to the hollow unmarked but unmistakable, its entrance framed by two gnarled trees twisted into unnatural shapes. Jack's flashlight cut through the dawn mist, his boots sinking into the damp earth. The spiral symbol appeared again, carved into a tree, then another, guiding him deeper. The clearing was exactly as the Polaroid showed, a circle of stones, the charred chair at its center, the air thick with the smell of ash and something sweeter, like rotting fruit. Jack knelt, examining the ground. Footprints, dozens of them fresh, circling the chair like a ritual. His flashlight caught a glint in the dirt, a small metal tag, like a dog tag, engraved with Subject 17. Jack's heart pounded. Kane's words echoed. "You don't understand what they've become." A twig snapped behind him. Jack spun, his gun drawn, but the forest was still, save for the rustle of leaves. His eyes scanned the trees, catching a flicker of movement, a figure, tall and cloaked, vanishing into the shadows. Not a hallucination, not a trick of the light. Someone was watching. Jack's phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with another unknown number. He answered, his voice steady. "Who is this?" A low chuckle, distorted but chillingly familiar. "You're persistent, Ramsey. But you're not ready for the truth." The line went dead, and the forest seemed to close in, the air growing colder, heavier. Jack moved toward the chair, his flashlight revealing more details. Scratches on the arms, dried blood in the crevices, and a small, leather-bound book tucked beneath it. He opened it, recognizing Emily's handwriting from a notebook found in the trunk. The pages were newer, the ink fresh, dated April 10th, 2025, just days ago. "They let me out, but I'm not free. The woods are alive. The subjects are everywhere. They wear our faces now." Jack's blood ran cold. Emily had been in the hospital, hadn't she? He'd seen her there, weak but alive. Or had he? The memory blurred, his exhaustion clouding his mind. He flipped to the last page, where a single sentence was scrawled in frantic, uneven letters. Nathan was one of them. Nathan Brooks. The man the town blamed, the man who'd vanished. Jack's mind reeled. Had Nathan been a victim, a pawn, or something worse? He stuffed the book into his bag, his eyes scanning the clearing. The footprints led to a narrow path, barely visible, winding deeper into the forest. The hum from the tunnels was back, faint but unmistakable, vibrating through the ground. Jack followed the path, his gun drawn, the spiral symbols appearing more frequently now, etched into rocks, trees, even the dirt. The path ended at a rusted gate, half hidden by vines, leading to what looked like an abandoned bunker. Its door was ajar, the interior dark but alive with a hum. Jack's flashlight revealed a concrete chamber, its walls covered in photos. Hundreds of faces, some familiar, some not. Emily, Sarah, Daniel Holt, even Nathan, their eyes vacant, their expressions identical. Below each photo was a number. Subject 12, Subject 17, Subject 23. At the room's center stood a console, its screen flickering with a live feed. A grainy image of Jack himself, standing in the clearing moments ago. The camera angle high, hidden in the trees. Someone had been watching him, recording him. The hum grew louder, and the screen changed, showing a new image. A group of cloaked figures, their faces masked, standing in a circle around a chair. One turned to the camera, its mask featureless, but for a single spiral symbol. Jack's phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't a call. A text, from the same unknown number. "You're one of us now." His heart stopped as a shadow loomed behind him, the gate creaking shut. He spun, his flashlight catching a cloaked figure, its mask gleaming in the dark. Before he could raise his gun, a sharp pain exploded in his head, and the world went black. What have they done to Jack? Read Part 6 to uncover the final truth. Share your theory in the comments, and subscribe for the chilling conclusion. April 13th, 2025, Pine Hollow, Georgia. Detective Jack Ramsey awoke to the taste of blood and the hum of machinery, his head throbbing where the blow had landed. His wrists were bound, the leather straps biting into his skin, and the chair beneath him was cold, unyielding, bolted to the floor, just like the one in the red room. The air was thick with the scent of antiseptic and rust, and the faint red glow of a single bulb cast long shadows across the concrete walls. His gun was gone, his flashlight shattered, and the weight of his failure pressed against his chest. The spiral symbol stared down at him, etched into the wall, its slashed eye mocking his every move. Jack's mind raced, piecing together the fragments. Emily's notebook, the Project Red files, Elias Kane's taunts, and the cloaked figure that had struck him in the bunker. The text message burned in his memory. "You're one of us now." He tugged at the straps, his shoulders screaming from the earlier wound, but they held fast. The hum grew louder, a mechanical pulse that seemed to sync with his heartbeat, and he realized it wasn't just machinery. It was alive, a rhythm that felt like the forest itself. A door creaked open, and a figure stepped into the light. Not Kane, whose face Jack had unmasked, but another, taller, broader, the same featureless mask gleaming under the red glow. The figure carried a syringe, its contents glowing faintly blue, and a clipboard with a single sheet. Subject 42, Ramsey. Jack's blood ran cold. They'd been watching him, planning this, from the moment he arrived in Pine Hollow. "Who are you?" Jack growled, his voice hoarse but defiant. "What do you want with me?" The figure tilted its head, the mask reflecting Jack's own distorted face. "Order," it said, its voice a low, distorted hum, neither male nor female. "You've seen the chaos, Ramsey. The world needs structure. Project Red was never about destruction, it was about perfection." Jack's thoughts flashed to the photos in the bunker. Emily, Sarah, Nathan, Daniel, and countless others, their eyes vacant, their minds remade. "You're brainwashing people," he spat. "You took Emily, Sarah, all of them. For what? Control." The figure stepped closer, the syringe glinting. "Not control. Evolution. The human mind is weak, fractious. We make it whole. You'll understand soon." It reached for Jack's arm, but he jerked against the straps, the chair creaking under his weight. "Where's Emily?" Jack demanded. "She was in the hospital. What did you do to her?" The figure paused, its mask unreadable. "Emily was a success. She's with us now, as you will be." It gestured to the wall, where a monitor flickered to life. The screen showed Emily, standing in a clearing, the hollow, her face blank, her movements mechanical. She wore a cloak, a spiral symbol pinned to her chest. Beside her stood Nathan Brooks, his eyes just as empty, his hands stained with dirt, as if he'd been digging. Jack's heart sank. Nathan, the man he'd thought was a victim, a suspect, a ghost. He was part of this, reprogrammed like the others. The footage shifted, showing more figures, all cloaked, all masked, moving through the woods in eerie unison. Dozens, maybe hundreds, their faces hidden, but their purpose clear. Jack's mind reeled. This wasn't a local conspiracy, it was a network, a machine that had been running for decades, hidden in the pines. "Why me?" Jack asked, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at him. "Why now?" "You were chosen," the figure said. "Your loss, Clara, made you perfect. You seek truth, but you'll find purpose." It raised the syringe, the needle inches from Jack's arm. He thought of Clara, her smile in the photo, the sister he'd failed. He couldn't fail again. With a surge of adrenaline, Jack rocked the chair, his weight straining the bolts. One snapped, then another, and the chair tipped, crashing to the floor. The figure lunged, but Jack rolled free, the straps loosening just enough for him to slip one hand out. He grabbed the syringe, plunging it into the figure's leg. It staggered, the mask slipping to reveal a face, ordinary, unremarkable, a man in his 50s with cold, unfeeling eyes. Jack scrambled to his feet, his vision swimming, and kicked the door open. The corridor beyond was dark, but he ran, the hum chasing him, the walls closing in. He burst into another chamber, this one filled with monitors showing Pine Hollow, streets, homes, the sheriff's station. They'd been watching everyone. A single photo lay on a table, Clara, taken the day she vanished, a spiral symbol drawn over her face. Jack's knees buckled. Clara hadn't just disappeared. She'd been taken, like Emily, like Sarah. He grabbed the photo, his hand shaking, and stumbled toward an exit, a rusted hatch in the ceiling. He climbed. the hum fading as he emerged into the forest, the dawn light filtering through the pines. His truck was still there, untouched, but the clearing was empty, the chair gone, the footprints erased. He drove back to Pine Hollow, his mind a storm of guilt and resolve. At the station, Lila was waiting, her face pale. "Jack, where the hell were you?" "Emily's gone, vanished from a hospital. Sarah too. And Caney's dead. Hung himself in his cell." Jack's grip tightened on Clara's photo. "It's not over," he said, his voice hollow. "They're out there." He handed Lila the photo, the spiral symbol burning into his memory. "This is bigger than we thought." That night, Jack stood outside his sister's old house, now abandoned, its windows dark. He placed Clara's photo on the porch, a silent vow to keep searching. But as he turned to leave, he saw it, a shadow in the pines, cloaked, masked, watching. It didn't move, didn't speak, but its presence was a promise. The network was alive, and it wasn't done with him. Jack got into his truck, his badge heavy in his pocket. He'd exposed Kane, saved who he could, but the cost was steep. His trust in the system, his peace, maybe his sanity. The pines whispered as he drove away, their secrets unbroken, their shadows stretching long. Is this story truly over? Share your theory in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe for more mysteries.